a full set. Are you there, Neil? Good stuff.
Yeah.
Hello. Right. Well, hello and a warm welcome to the EV Cafe. We've got no video to play to kick off because, well, frankly, it's just not going to happen. But you are very welcome to something a little bit new, because today we're going to myth bust, but with extra sparkle and a bit of weirdness. Now, let me first introduce the EV Cafe crew for those of you that are new here. So there's me, I'm JC, and today I'm sitting in the chair. We've got Sam, he's the good-looking one, or he thinks so anyway. We've got Sarah, she's absolutely stunningly brilliant, and we have Paul. Anyway, happily, some might say, Johnny Berry's not here because Mrs. Johnny Berry's having a baby as we speak. More news on that soon, and we're all really delighted that that little JB is on its way, one way or the other, and that's why genuinely I have my toy hat on so that I can just rush to hospital and say hi. But welcome to you all, because we are myth busting. And one of the great myths is that we don't have a gigafactory in the UK. Well, we're getting one. It's worth noting that the great news that the battery gigafactory for JLR and Tata is coming to the UK. We've also got the legend that is Chris Ramsey, doing his pole to pole from magnetic north down to the South Pole. And we'll come to you in a minute, Chris, to get a live update. And bear in mind, it's 4 o'clock in the morning with you. So, do you know what? Should we do that without further ado? Chris Ramsey, how the dickens are you, my friend?
I am hot. That's how I am. So
yeah, we know. Damn.
Yeah.
We know we can barely be in your presence, Chris.
Yeah, no, we're good. I mean, like you say, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, but yeah, I'm still feeling good, feeling great. It's been a few months on the road, 3 months on the road now. I think that's insane. But yeah, we're doing really well. Julie's grabbing some sleep at the moment, so she can take over the driving tomorrow while I do this and do a lot of planning from the road. We're still, all the logistics for Antarctica is getting done just now, so we've got a lot of work to do while we're on the road.
Dude, I'm going to come back to you in just 1 second. I want to introduce our 2 other guests. Natalia Peralta Silverstone. What a great name. Stunningly fabulous. From Octopus EV, who's here to bust some of the myths around electric vehicle provision. And we have the legend that is Niall Riddle, or Neil Riddle, from Power. And you're here to talk about charging and all the ways in which you can make everybody's life that little bit easier. We'll come back to you 2 in just a mo. But Chris, you must have had some real challenges whilst you've been on the road. What's been the thing that has gone better than you expected?
I think so far, the whole thing, in the sense of the fact that we're here. I mean, any number of things could have happened, right? We went up, you know, we were 250 miles into the Arctic Ocean. Anything could have happened. Last year, one of the vehicles on a recce reconnaissance mission went through the ice and had to be recovered. The guys had a minute and a half to get out of the vehicle before literally it went under. So anything could have went wrong up there. And when we left northeast of Canada, for people get a sense of where we were, Cambridge Bay was the last bit of civilization we had before we went into the ocean. Coming from Cambridge Bay, you go to a town called Yellowknife, and in between there's like 1,000 kilometers of no man's land. But there's a section of ice road, and we were told the ice road is melting. They were closing it 10 days early. We had to take 4 days out of our schedule where we had no scheduled days to take out, or else literally we were going to be stranded. Climate change is basically making the ice road melt unpredictably sooner every year. We made it. We were 4 days late for the ice road to close, but they kept it open for us. And we had a whole entire ice road to ourselves, which was great at first. And then as we got close to Yellowknife, the tires were going through the ice a number of occasions. So it became quite scary. But I mean, I think in general, I've got to be so satisfied with how things have went today. We're here. The car has had a bent washer in terms of repairs to be done to it. And if you think about that when it comes to an EV and any kind of vehicle, it's been incredible. That shows how reliable the vehicles are, and I'm just so happy to be here alive and safe and well. So yeah, I mean, it's been insane. It's been an insane time, and we've driven about something like 9,000 miles now on this expedition, and had an incredible time, and saw a polar bear in the wild, which was amazing. And we've driven pretty much a whole lap of the US. So we're down here in Arizona, as we're saying, but we've actually been already across to Nashville, up to Detroit, over to Portland, down to LA, across to Arizona, and then in a week's time we are going to be in Mexico and start effectively what I'm seeing as the final leg of the journey.
Wow. Arriba, arriba. Now then, let's go over to some of the other EV Cafe peeps. Who's got a question?
I've got a question.
Sam.
Yeah, I've been wondering this the whole time, Chris. So you've got those amazing fat tires on your car, which make it look pretty awesome. And obviously they're not there for show, they're there for practicality. When you came further south, however, was there not an option to put road tires back on again to increase range?
There was, but the two elements. I've worked with a charging company to build a charging network for us in South America and Central America, and I planned about 150 miles of range between each charger. They've actually done better than that, and in some cases we've only got 40 miles between chargers. So when we saw that we could comfortably get 150, 160 miles of range out of the car, and so we can probably push it up to about 180, 190 miles because of nice weather. I thought, well, why change them? It's giving us what we need, and it looks way cooler with them on. if we put smaller tires on, it's going to change the look of the car. And to be honest with you, it's that the car is connecting us with so many people here. The amount of big diesel truck lover guys that pull up in their big trucks and go, wow, that's amazing, look at those 39-inch tires on that car, and it just changes their thought process straight away. So we thought, why change the thing that's kind of getting people to think differently about EV, basically.
Sure. Great answer. Thanks, Chris.
And Sarah, did you sorry, Paul, did Sarah have a little something?
Yeah, I did. Obviously, we've been following you intently and sending all our love and support continuously. However, some of the viewers won't fully grasp what it is that you guys are trying to do. And all adventures like this have a hypothesis to prove or disprove. So can I trouble you to share with everyone what it is that you're trying to achieve with this incredible adventure? Yeah.
So basically what we're trying to achieve, the main element of it is, this is to be the first vehicle in history to drive from the magnetic North Pole to the geographical South Pole in Antarctica.
No vehicle, even having the vision to do that is commendable. Most of us would just be like, might go to the shops. you guys are pushing boundaries, testing technology, galvanizing interest globally, and for that, round of applause from me.
Thank you. and just on Sam's point, I was just going to say is like the whole point of those tires as well is in the Arctic, in Antarctica, for people just to kind of understand, if you've seen a viral video of the polar bear spreading out on the ice to displace all its weight, that's essentially what those tires do for us in the Arctic and Antarctica. We drop the tire pressure down to about 4 to 8 psi of tire pressure, and it displaces all the weight of our electric vehicle, because in some areas we do not know how thick or thin the ice is that we're traveling across.
4 psi.
4 psi was the lowest we went down to. Yes.
So I think in my car it's about 30
on
a normal car tire. So that's unbelievable.
Yeah, you could literally drive over your hand and you would not feel it.
So Chris, in that context, because you were charging, obviously getting energy whilst you were out in the North Pole, and I don't think even GridServe haven't got there yet.
So disappointing, isn't it? I mean,
I know. Come on.
I'm sorry.
But the reality is, but you would have got a lot less distance, because we know that tire pressure is really, really important in terms of maximizing range. And obviously at 4 psi, you're going pretty slowly. 2, you're not getting much range. And 3, you've got nowhere to charge. What on earth did you do, man?
So there's 2 elements to that. So we had a generator with us. We had a 7 kilowatt petrol generator with us, because 2 things: we need that for the permits, or else we won't get the approval to go into the Arctic and Antarctica to do the expedition, because that's effectively the traditional safety net. The second element was we basically worked with a couple of companies in Scotland, Electron Garage, Rise Energy, and we worked and built a wind turbine trailer, put a 5 kilowatt wind turbine on the back of a trailer with a charging device. And the idea was to harness wind energy. So an element of this project is to try and harness renewables in the north and then in the south. In the north, it was all down to wind. Unfortunately, Mother Nature had different ideas for us. Basically, when we got to the Arctic, it literally turned into effectively what you're saying there is Mallorca, because literally there was no wind. It was so sunny, and that just corresponds to the fact of how the ice road was melting so much earlier as it should be than it should be. So from that perspective, we couldn't harness any wind, which was disappointing. But in Antarctica, we have 24/7 sunlight, so we get no nighttime in Antarctica. So we're working with a solar company just now to take 4 kilowatt of solar with us, the generator as well. But we will have a tent there. We're going to tent the car to keep the car warm, use the sunlight to warm the tent and warm the car. And then we're going to be charging from solar as well.
It's amazing, isn't it? You're using this expedition to prove that there is technology available to help us in this transition that might not impact the grid and not burn stuff. You know, ultimately, we recognize that there have been challenges. You've got to keep going, but it's amazing the science, the technology, and all of that good stuff that is coming through from what you're doing. Well done.
And it's not perfect. What we're saying to people is this wind solution wasn't perfect. The solar solution that we're putting together isn't going to be perfect, but the reality is nobody's done it yet. Nobody's doing it. And when we've gone to people, the disappointing thing for me is when we've gone to the industry and went, hey, jump on board and support us. This is what we want to do. A lot of the industry has turned away from us. And it's not surprising for me because my whole career, a decade of doing this, the industry's always said, you're too far ahead of the game. You're a bit ahead of your time. But I continuously just prove that this is possible, and hopefully that accelerates these people to basically acting now as opposed to just saying it's not possible or maybe we'll look at it later.
Chris, there's a question from Sam Cockwell, who's from the Falkland Islands, and he's asked, with crawling along off-road, did you get a further range than you expected, given that speed's a significant contributor to range?
Great question.
Yeah, good question, Sam. And hey, Sam. I know Sammy's reached out a few times on social media, so hello. And he's got a great Zero motorbike, I believe.
Indeed.
But yeah, the answer is probably yes. We got better range than what we'd expect. What we would get if we were going faster. But really, our range was impacted quite a bit by the cold. We were It was minus 39. The car was living in minus 39 for about 3 weeks.
Wow.
And initially we couldn't get enough charge in the car because the battery, they did have that impact on the cold. So we could charge to about 57 to 62% initially. What we then found was a way to heat the car's heat pump and radiator system to allow that to work efficiently. And then we were able to get literally 1% would give us 1 kilometer of range. So it really impacted the car in terms of having roughly 100 kilometers of range available to us.
Goodness me. Well, we're really lucky to have Chris here for the whole of this hour. So thank you. And we'll get some more questions later on if we may. Before we move on to the quiz bit, which is just a quick message from our sponsors. We're lucky enough to be sponsored by the AA, Plug Me In, Churchill, Geotab, and EV Civils. And without them, we wouldn't be doing this. We wouldn't be able to promote electric vehicles as you do, Chris. We're all dependent upon sponsors to make that bit of difference that we can. We couldn't do it without you, and we are massively grateful for all the support you continue to give us. So thank you for that. But right now, people, it is time for us to go to the Wheel of Destiny. Oh, unless Sam's got something to say.
No, I'm just wondering where your sequins are because I've been stitched up.
Hello, I'm wearing a gown with a ridiculous backdrop.
Hello.
I think I've been stitched up.
And
mine are on the helicopter.
3, 2, 1.
Oh.
So stop your whining.
There you
anyway. let's get into the quiz, shall we? So we are going to do a myth-busting quiz, and this has every possibility of going hideously wrong. So let's explain what's going to happen. We have 3 guests with us, as well as our regular panel. And what we're going to do is we're going to have a quiz where I have the Wheel of Destiny. Allow me to share with you the Wheel of Destiny.
I got the Wheel of
Destiny.
Now then, hopefully you can see the Wheel of Destiny. Yes, and here we will spin the wheel. It will choose one of our panelists or possibly one of the audience to come on and speak to a myth.
You don't win anything, Sam. You just get the question.
Still feel a winner, though. I still feel a winner.
So, ordinarily now, what I would do is go to my desktop and we would choose a category. Hopefully, with a bit of luck, you can now see the categories. So, yes. we have money, environment, safety, speed, charging, and mystery. And I would ask the panel to have a think about a question that a subject matter, a category that they would choose for Sam to answer on. Now, he's the charging expert, so frankly, we're not going to ask him charging questions. No. So what would we choose, panel? What do you think Sam should answer a question on?
Sam Cockrell says mystery.
Mystery. Ooh. Okay, so we're going to go mystery. So Sam, you have a mystery question. And the mystery is that the myth is that self-charging hybrids will save the world. Now then, you have 1 minute to dispel that myth, starting now.
Right, talking about being stitched up. Self-charging hybrids don't really exist, and if they do, by literal sense, you are only charging a battery using a petrol engine. So there is really a massive myth is that, or misrepresentation in the automotive OEM, that self-charging hybrids are good for the environment, which of course they're not, because all you're doing is putting 2 bits of technology into one vehicle and then using petrol to make energy, which is stupid. So self-charging is the most ridiculous thing, and actually been banned in certain countries for a Trade Description Act. So please don't buy hybrids. They're a total waste of time. Yes, maybe in a very localized environment when you only do very short journeys, they might work. But even then, you might as well have an EV anyway. And now it's a technology which is obsolete. So don't even bother. It's pointless. It's a waste of time. There's too many engines, too many moving parts. It's a complete nonsense. So go EV, and then you'll be all fine. How's that?
Kindly. Very, very good. And bang on a minute. Do any of our panelists have anything to add to that? Steve Hamer from Shell, interestingly enough, says, don't knock hybrids. Many of us started the journey to EV with a hybrid, Mark II Prius, back in 2007. Steve, counselling is available.
Well, but there is a difference between hybrids, like the plug-in hybrids that we're and self-charging hybrids. That self-charging is that misrepresentation that it kind of is almost altruistic. It's perfect. You know, you don't have any of the problems, but you have all of the benefits. But that's not true.
Anybody else got anything to add? Natalia.
Did anyone see the advert on self-charging? I think it was Toyota, where you've got the charger with cobwebs on it. You got this like really lovely car like driving. Yes. And I watched that. I honestly, my blood boiled watching that advert.
There's been lots like that. There's been people driving past each other, waving at people waiting at chargers in their little car name, sure name brand this, but they're sort of going, oh bye, I'm on my way because I've got a petrol and battery. It was like, oof, dear me.
It's the we choose not to plug in advertising campaign, which has turned into they're now plugging in. So that worked out well for them, didn't it?
Short memories.
So how did we think Sam did? Pretty good, I thought.
Very well.
You did all right.
On the spot. Totally on the spot as well. You completely stitched me up.
The whole game, though.
That's the idea.
That's the point, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway,
all right, but I had to go first, though. I didn't realise.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
did well.
Yay! I won.
Right.
Put your hat on.
Best of order. Now then, let's spin that wheel.
Oh no! I don't
It's the only game you don't want to win, right?
Who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? It's gonna be
Neil Nile.
I'm a winner.
Right. Okay. So now we have to go to the categories. So let me share the categories again. Dun, 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 dun. No, you don't. No. We choose for you, cheeky monkey. Right.
There's nothing you can't do. It's all going to be fine.
Give him safety.
Yeah, I thought that. Safety.
Yeah. All right. Let's go for a safety question. Neil Nile, we have a safety question for you. That EVs can't charge in the rain. You have 60 seconds. Go.
So EVs can't charge in the rain. Nothing can charge in the rain. The reality is it rains a lot in this country. So what we've observed is a lot of people plugging in and charging in the rain. In fact, I can probably pull up a couple of pictures of me plugging in and charging in the rain. All of this equipment that we see, this electrical equipment, has to have certain safety approvals and safety checks. As a consequence, one would anticipate that safety check is also being conducted on a very expensive vehicle which you purchased on your driveway, made by some major brand name manufacturers. So one would anticipate that that is safe to charge in the rain. In fact, I'll even go further and suggest you can drive through puddles, you can drive through floods, and there are some fabulous videos of people driving through floods and rivers and streams and fords. These vehicles have been designed to be used for all purposes. So you can charge safely in the rain, you can charge safely with a safe charger. Please try and avoid those 3-pin plugs. If you are going to go and do that trailing cable thing, please be sensible. But realistically, use a safe charger, home charger. There are lovely ones on the market. Public charger, I believe Sam knows a few people who make them. You can charge in the rain, but take an umbrella. It will keep you from getting wet while you do so.
Good work. Anybody got anything to add to Neil's brilliant answer, Sarah?
I have, just to reiterate that professionally installed chargers is going to be your certification process. That's great. But on top of that, I do wish that charging hubs did think a little more about the comfort rather than the safety, and put shelters over just for that moment whilst you're plugging in, so you haven't got to wrestle an umbrella or just get wet like I do.
I think it's also worth saying, Neil, spell your name differently, for goodness sake.
We have to get his name right, otherwise I'm going to start calling you Hayal or something.
Yeah, fine. Anyway, Neil made a good point about being able to operate in floods. Of course, they don't have an exhaust which that can then sort of get choked. So actually they could and probably are better in wading depths than their diesel or petrol counterparts.
Air intake is the other equivalent. You always used to need to know in your diesel or petrol where your air intake was at the front. As long as you kept the revs up, the exhaust would be fine, but the air intake issue has gone away. So that's good.
Chris, you driven through any floods yet?
For me, no, not yet, thankfully, because the last time I was on water was in the Arctic, so I didn't want to drive in that.
Besides, not with those tyres.
Just to touch on your point, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, you can drive an EV in the rain, because let's face it, if a manufacturer or anybody was selling you a car that couldn't go in the rain, then basically, it wouldn't be type approved, it wouldn't be go through European standards. That'd be just a dangerous piece of kit, and it wouldn't get through any kind of standards in any country. So it's obvious you can drive in the rain.
Brilliant.
And you can put your car in the car wash, just so you can take it through the car wash safely as well.
Well done.
Not this. I cannot tell you how nervous this makes me. I don't even know why.
Are we ready? Let's go. Spin the wheel of destiny. And who's it gonna be? It's gonna be Christoph Lammy Pie. Dun, dun, dun. So,
can I have Antarctica?
You can't have my friend. Right. Okay. So let's see. What are the categories again? What are we going to choose for Christoph Lammy Pie?
Environment.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Okay.
I like it. Let's do the environment, shall we? So, Chris, this is a really simple one. Electric vehicles are not better for the environment. You have 60 seconds. Tell us why.
Well, a simple thing about EVs being better for the environment, 2 elements. No tailpipe emissions. So then you emit no emissions from an electric vehicle at all. And that means when you're driving through cities, the air quality is cleaner, better for the environment, better for the air quality in your cities. You can charge an electric vehicle from renewable energy from your home. Therefore, again, your energy usage that goes into the car is clean and green. But also, if you are actually charging your electric vehicle from fossil fuels, it is still far cleaner for the environment and far better for the planet by doing that, because it's far cleaner than it is using petrol going into a car that is then emitting carbon dioxide or fossil fuels into the atmosphere. Right? You're not emitting fossil fuels in the atmosphere. Sorry, that was wrong. But you're fitting CO2 into the atmosphere.
I think I'm going to save you from yourself there, Chris. 60 seconds.
It is now 4 o'clock in the morning, and is the fair.
Yes. Anybody got anything to add to that EVs are not good for the environment?
I think it's worth. Go on, Saz. No, you go, Saz.
No, just to do a time comparator, which is really, really nice. So this was a fact from 2019 taken from Washington University about the total life of an EV versus an internal combustion engine. And they used to say that you had to drive that for 150,000 kilometers before it even broke even with those calculations. I don't know whether it's halved, but it's definitely gone down. And it's broadly anticipated that study will be repeated next year.
I think it's 12,000 miles.
Gone down to 12. Okay.
I think it's. Oh, go on. No, let Neil go.
All I was going to say was Neil Nile has very helpfully put a transport and environment report into the chat, which talks about the life cycle emissions of electric vehicles. So thank you, Neil Nile. Paul.
Well, it's important to recognize that it does depend upon the grid that you're using. I've had some online discussions with the good old Americans who say only 20% of our energy is renewable. Yes, it might be, but we have considerably more in the UK. And of course, other countries around the world have 100% renewable energy, which is fantastic. So it will depend a little bit on the grid as to how quickly your vehicle sort of rights itself in terms of its carbon impact. But great to know that other manufacturers are now using zero emission creation processes like VW with the ID range.
Natalia. Sorry, Chris, go on.
Go for it. I was going to say, on that note, Electrify America also have done a lot of renewable energy installations, which means they are generating far more energy from renewables than what their network actually chucks out.
Now, Natalia, you must hear lots and lots of myths talked about when you speak to customers. What are the key ones that you pick up that we haven't already addressed?
I mean, range is clearly one of them, right? So like, how far can my car really go? And I won't be able to charge it anywhere. And, it's going to take me, 24 hours to charge my car. Those kind of myths are, I reckon, the most common. I think people kind of look at an EV and go, can I afford it? And then if you work through that with them and you talk about total cost of ownership and you see what's right for them, then the next question goes, well, where do I charge it? And how does that work? And how far is it going to go? And addressing range anxiety. So it's myths in that category.
Okay, so let's pick one of those. Let's take the cost of an EV. EVs are too expensive. Let's spin the wheel to see who's going to answer the myth that EVs are too expensive. Are we ready? Let's go. Let's boogaloo.
It's just that noise. I think it's the noise that's stressing me out more than anything else.
It's the creeping death. Paul! Okay, Pablo, it's all yours, my friend. EVs are too expensive.
So if you just focus on the purchase price, you would be forgiven for thinking that they are too expensive, because they are typically considerably more than an ICE vehicle comparison. But the great news is that with the mixture of residual values, maintenance budgets, and the cost of energy and reduced downtime, the total cost of ownership, or the acronym we love to use is TCO, the vehicle quickly makes good on the promise of a reduced cost, particularly in the car world. Now, the challenge is for commercial vehicles that it isn't quite there yet because of the higher cost of energy. But these things can be mitigated with things like solar power and reduced cost of energy, mitigating that over a period of time. Also, it's worth recognizing that EVs are likely to be much more effective over a longer period of time, and therefore costing you less on a monthly basis over that same period. So you are always winning, particularly in cars, and we're moving particularly towards that in the commercial vehicle area as well. And as the cost of energy comes down, we'll all be quids in.
That was really very Very
Did you
concise.
prepare that? Did you prepare that?
He's got that question, hasn't he?
I have to do this all the time.
Good point, actually.
I wrote it for him and sent it to him this morning. So
you wish you did. You wish.
He's good. Now then, we're gonna pick one from our chat box, and Alec Peachy, bless his heart. Thank you, Alec from Transport and Energy, has come up with a question which is around, or a myth, which says the weight of EVs is the cause of potholes. And we've also got this nonsense about being a problem with car parks beginning to collapse. So who is going to answer the question on the weight of EVs causing potholes and car parks to collapse? Sarah,
Sam wants this one. Sam wants it.
Right.
My hand up before Sam, because this is my all-time most annoying one. Okay, spin that anxious wheel.
We got to do the Wheel of Fortune. It is the guider. The guider.
Oh no,
Natalia!
Yeah. Okay, go.
You know, I knew I was going to get this question, and I'm probably like the least qualified person to answer this question. So I'm gonna give what I expect as an educated response. I mean, potholes in roads. How can we blame those on EVs? We've had potholes in roads way before we had EVs on the road. Probably more down to badly built roads or heavy goods vehicles or lots of other stuff. I mean, you can't blame it on EVs because we had them before we had EVs. So that's my potholes one. And my car parks one, I mean, how heavy do we think these electric cars really are to be braking car parks? Again, that's probably more of a structural problem with the car park. If there has been an unfortunate incident, then EVs being parked in car parks would be my answer there. But if someone actually has a documented kind of response here, feel free to jump in, because I don't really have more than that.
Go on, Saz. You really wanted it. Go for it.
Let's go Sarah first, then Sam.
Natalia absolutely nailed it. You said the exact same things as everybody in the chat, and as I would have said too. The only thing I'd add is I think this is a victim of timeline, of chronology. Like, those car parks and roads would have probably been due for renewal or repair by now anyway, and are subjected to, I hope, stringent safety rules and protocols. So I suspect this is just one of those things. My Tesla weighs as much as another large vehicle of 2-point-something tons. So I don't really think there's any difference. I guess there is some slight concern about the fact that EVs do drive a lot, they get driven a lot, so further mileage being done, but it's such a nebulous correlation. The other thing that people don't consider is that road surface experimentation has been going on for the last 20 odd years as well. So some of those aggregates that are being used promised great deliverables and yet aren't being seen. There are more potholes than were ever anticipated. So it's way more complicated than, oh, it's those EVs again. It's like the scapegoat for everything.
And Sam.
Yeah, it's hard to follow those two lovely ladies, but I think the only thing that springs to mind really is to say, well, obviously vehicles have got larger and larger over time. We can see that in all vehicles. You walk down the car park, everyone's driving an SUV, whether it's electric or petrol. So the average weight of vehicles has been going up and up and up throughout the years as a result of all the extra technology on them. So that's one of the fundamental reasons. 300 kilograms heavier than its counterpart in the petrol world. So it is true that they are heavier. But a large-ish petrol or diesel vehicle is the same weight as an average sized EV. So there is very, very little difference ultimately between the two. It's just a case of the fact that vehicles are getting bigger and heavier as they have done for many, many years. So again, as Sass said, it's just a myth that is useful to try and batter EVs with, but it's a load of rubbish.
Let's go to Paul and then Chris Ramsey.
So commercial vehicle traffic will have some influence on this as well, but just in general, because there is more commercial vehicle traffic delivering more goods around, and they are heavier. But it doesn't matter whether they're electric or diesel, because they are maxed out at 3.5 tons. They do have the ability to go to 4.25 tons for alternatively fueled vehicles, but we have these weight limits up through, so it's not really going to be any increased impact. But I mean, take the Iveco E Daily, where I'm currently at the launch of the Iveco E Daily. Incredible product, let me tell you. Just thought I'd throw that in because they've been kind enough to let me jump on here. But it is, you know, they're at 3.5, or they're at 4.25, or they're at all of the same weights that they've always been. So it doesn't make any difference to that traffic. It's just the use and weight and mileage that's being done on the roads, and they're not being maintained as well as they could be.
Nice of you to wake up, Sam. Thanks for that. And Chris?
I'll just add a very simple, you guys have done that so eloquently. I'll add a very simple point. If it was true that this is what EVs are doing, they wouldn't be putting EV charge points on second and third and fourth story in the roofs of car parks, multi-story car parks, which they're doing, because then the car parks would fall down, and they're not. So,
and 50 cars and vans and trucks, all electric, went on a ferry recently. And if it was true, we'd all be at the bottom of the sea.
Well, you're now straying into the next question, which is been posed by Matthew Ling. Should EVs only be parked on the top floor of multi-story car parks because they spontaneously combust and burst into flames? Sarah, you cannot go to the toilet. Put your hand down. Now then. Oh no, I need to show you this, don't I? I'm spinning the wheel quite merrily here, enjoying myself. And I've not shared it. What a donut. Right, okay, here we go. Now, do that again. No.
Yeah, do that one again.
No.
Do that again.
Okay, sorry, Chris. Right, let's do it properly. I was getting far too excited there. Spontaneous. Oh, here we go.
Back with Sam.
Sam the man. Right, so.
Sam's Googling. He's so Googling.
What's this fire, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, you're busted. We know you're reading.
Yeah, I've forgotten the statistics, and I was just quickly looking, but I can't find them. So yeah, EVs don't catch fire. It's a myth, because in the old days of lithium batteries, when they were very, very early days, they were overheating and being overcharged, which caused them to self-combust. But they're incredibly well protected now, such that really isn't an issue. In fact, going back to my first question about mild hybrids, the cars that are most likely to self-combust is actually hybrid vehicles. So another very good reason to not do it. So the percentage is, I can't remember, that's what I was quickly looking for and I couldn't find it, but it's absolutely minimal, the number of electric fires we have as a result of the main batteries on the EVs relative to diesel, petrol and hybrids, which are considerably worse. So if you're worried about fires, the worst place to be is anything other than an EV.
Well, in particular, hybrids, isn't it? The plug-in hybrids are the worst. Sorry,
I said that.
No, don't worry about that. It's just there's somebody, a very well-informed person within our chat. Thank you, Stephen, for submitting this. Most common myth for me as an investigator is that all EVs spontaneously combust. I have investigated multiple car fires and hang on, in all but one have found human interaction within 3 steps is the cause of the fire. So once again, it's human failure as it stands now. And the question was about whether you should put them on the top of the multi-story building. Now, this amuses me because I used to play Sim City, and we all know that fires start at the top of the building and then the whole building falls down. So I don't think that's going to save anyone.
Science there. Science. I'm telling you. Right. Come on. Let's get back to the Wheel of Destiny. Who's going to be next? I've got to say, I'm hoping it's Neil Nile, because he's been very patient.
It's right. It's not even hard.
Wow. Oh, not Sam again.
Seriously.
Boring.
Honestly. Right. I think we should come up with a question for Sam, a really tough one, something really, really hard. One of those big, nasty, horrible ones.
Isn't there a question in the chat about the EV batteries lasting 2-3 years, cobalt, children mining, all of that good stuff?
Children mining. I love that one. Right. Okay. So children are mining for cobalt to go into electric batteries. Sam, you have 1 minute. Go.
Okay, so there are 2 major types of rare earth metal that are in batteries: cobalt and lithium. Both the myths, the naysayers out there go, oh, we can't have more batteries because there isn't enough of those rare earth metals. Well, as far as lithium is concerned, there's over 80 million tons of it on land and 230 billion tons of it in the sea. So that is the equivalent of 19 trillion Nissan Leafs. So that we will not run out of lithium, and they're getting better at extracting it and finding better ways of extracting it as well. As far as cobalt is concerned, that's been slashed by about 90% utilization in the EV world over the last decade. So we are declining the use of cobalt, and there has been obviously lots of stories around the way in which children had been abused effectively in mining in horrible conditions as a result of that cobalt needing to be extracted from the earth. But we are already seeing multiple vehicle manufacturers creating cobalt and nickel-free batteries. So already, as an industry, we've not only slashed the amount of cobalt, but we're removing it completely. Meanwhile, however, let's not forget that cobalt is used in petrol and diesel still, and has done for many, many, many decades.
In the refining of, yes.
Sam, refining of.
Sam, I really apologise here, but lithium and cobalt are not rare earth metals. Bring in Neil Nile. Neil Nile, are they rare metals? Rare earth metals?
It's part of the periodic table that is referred to as rare earths, and they got all the weird and wonderful stuff in there, like neodymium and weird stuff that no one can pronounce. Lithium and cobalt don't sit on that part of the spectrum, so they're not considered rare earths. They're actually more abundant. What blew my mind was Sam has learnt Dr. Ewan McTurk's numbers very, very accurately. It's the one text message I have in front of me right now is the exact numbers, because I was paranoid I'd get that question, and it is 80 million tons of lithium on land and 230 billion tons in seawater, which is mind-blowing. There's lots of it.
Brilliant. Well done, Sam.
I think what's worth also adding in there is that battery technology, the pace of change in it. So there's two things, right? So for years, cobalt has been used in the refining of petrol, Sam put, and nobody batted an eyelid, right? But then suddenly electric vehicles come along and everybody goes up in arms about the children that have been mining for a long, long time before now. And so as soon as we get hold of it in the electric vehicle world, of course, we're quick to put in fair mining rules around some of the contracts that are getting out, so that we are beginning to, monitor and improve the standards for people, and also quickly move away from cobalt, unlike petrochemical sites, which are apparently still carrying on with it.
Okay, now Steve Hamer, just to strike a balance. Chris, I'll come with you in just a sec.
Go for it.
But Steve Hamer's just said, just be careful with the fossil fuel comparison when talking cobalt. It's a catalyst, and I believe it's close on 99% recovery rate. 1 kilo of cobalt is in refining 4 million miles traveled. So I assume that's in the petrol refining process. It's worth considering when talking about myth busting, and we are try to be open-handed, and there are no, there's no we're not going to hide behind the fact that we're right and you're wrong, and we're right. We absolutely call it as we see it, and we're always happy to take that kind of input. So thanks for that, Steve, just to balance the scales. Chris.
Yes, very touching on this point very quickly. I was finding a tweet that I put out not long ago. So everybody gets concerned about the use of lithium when it comes to EVs, but everybody seems to forget that we're sitting here right now using products that have been using lithium for many, 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 many years. And there's even a bigger issue. Yeah, exactly. And there's an even bigger issue going on just now with the use of lithium, and that is vapes. So I was actually discovered a fact that last year in the UK alone, we sold over 168 million disposable vapes, and it's equivalent to 310 megawatt hours of lithium batteries. 50% of that is chucked into landfill. And we're all concerned about how much lithium is going into electric cars, and electric cars are actually doing something worthwhile in this world where their vapes are not.
That's really, really fabulous, Chris, and that's helped tremendously. I don't think any of us knew that, so well done, mate.
That's really cool. Thank you.
We're going to start to round this up now and bring it to a conclusion, but I think it would be right to ask our guests one final myth bust each in their area of expertise. What do you reckon?
Yeah, sure. Go on then. Let's be nice to them.
Cool. So let's start with Natalia. Natalia, electric vehicles through salary sacrifice are very expensive. You have 1 minute on that subject matter. Go now.
Okay. So I think it was already mentioned that electric cars versus petrol diesel are more expensive, so the purchase price of them. That still remains true no matter how you buy those cars. However, salary sacrifice is actually a really good way of combating that. So essentially the way it works is that you pay for it out of your gross salary, so you're effectively not paying income tax and national insurance on it. So roughly, if you're a 20% taxpayer, you save 20%. If you're a 40% taxpayer or more, you save that percentage on your monthly rental. So if you've got a 3-year lease and you would pay £800 a month on a personal lease, deduct that by 40 or 20%. That's very basic maths, by the way, just to explain the kind of savings you can make. And actually that helps combat some of the upfront cost that you would pay if you were buying that car outright, or if you were buying that car out of your own money. So it's just a really cost-effective way of getting an EV. And normally you would pay tax on that benefit that you receive in your salary, because it's an electric car, you only pay 2%. So you roughly save 20 or 40%, and to counteract that, you pay 2%. So you're making a big saving by getting an EV. Oh, Matt.
Now, can I just ask a very quick question? A lot of people asking, is salary sacrifice available anywhere other than the UK?
It is not. There is a form of it in Australia, but in the way it's currently structured, the UK is the only country that offers salary sacrifice. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right with that answer.
That's fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Anybody got anything to add about salary sacrifice?
And just one quick sentence, just to say that without salary sacrifice, if I took just the money instead with the tax applied, I wouldn't be able to drive the car that I drive now. So for me, it's been a technological unlocker for the same volume of money per month. So I've got a far better vehicle for essentially the same pinch.
Great work. Thank you kindly, Natalia. Let's move on to Neil Nile. Neil Nile, there are not enough chargers in the UK, and those that there are flipping complicated to use. You have 1 minute on that subject matter. Go.
One of the conversations I love to have with people in this space is about queuing and reservations. The reality is, as soon as you see queuing and reservations, you know that a particular location needs more chargers. So there's a definite requirement to add more chargers, because today we are still at only 2% of all vehicles on the road that are battery electric. So we have a low regrets decision to build more infrastructure to charge our vehicles. However, this myth that we're talking about right now tends to be thrown predominantly into the public charging space. And we mustn't forget that a huge proportion of people who have bought electric vehicles have a home charger. And a lot of them do that because there is the advantage of having a driveway, and therefore they will install a home charger. So if you can share your charger, suddenly we open up an enormous number of additional chargers. So today we're running around, I think, 60,000 charge point connectors in the UK. That's about 30,000 physical units at about 25, off the top of my head, 1,000 locations, versus the 8,000 locations you can refuel a petrol or diesel car. So they're very widely dispersed. There's lots of them. There is a low regrets decision to make more of them. Access is going to be a question. Government regulation is driving us towards more access. And we spend our day jobs making it easier for businesses to access electric vehicle charging.
We will be picking up on those regulations once we finish this daft quiz. And finally, Chris.
Yes.
Electric vehicles don't go very far, do they? You have 1 minute, start.
No, they don't. There you go. End of story. No, yes, they do. I mean, at the end of the day, electric vehicles now, the ranges are well over 300 miles. So doing 250, 300 plus miles. The new Area, for example, is over 320 miles. But the reality of my day-to-day driving is no more than 50 to 60 miles, really, when I'm living at home. I only drive long distance once or twice a year. In my adventures, what that proves is I can drive 500, 600 miles in a day in an EV with 2 or 3 charge stops, absolutely fine. And that goes to the point of EV charging infrastructure. There is charging infrastructure to support EVs, albeit it needs to grow in other countries and in some of the areas. But at the end of the day, they can drive long distance. I have proved it for a decade now. And I have driven in countries with 0 charging infrastructure, because at the end of the day, it's an electric car. It just needs access to electricity. It doesn't have to come from a charger. It can come from a domestic socket on the wall.
Oh, isn't it? Really would like to thank our 3 guests very, very much. And thank you, all of you, for all of the questions that came into the chat box there. Absolutely superb. Our quiz has come to an end. I think it's fair to say that our 3 guests were better than the panelists. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a bit of a reshuffle. Panelists will be gone next month. And, well, I'll see you with Natalia, Chris, and Neil Nile next week, or next month even. Anyway, we are lucky enough to have had in the UK some new regulations around charging, which are really, really important. And Neil Nile, you mentioned them in your discussion. Can you summarise broadly what the recommendations say?
I think there's 6 things. One of them is about rapid charge point reliability being 99%, so as measured with OCPI. One is about having call centers available on all rapid charging and I think all charging networks 24/7 to enable customers to complain or get problems fixed for them. And that has to be reported to government. There's one about open data, making sure that the information is widely available to customers so they can check on availability, status, location, those sorts of important things. There's one about pricing in pence per kilowatt hour to make it easier to understand. My fingers don't do this next one. There is one about credit card access for chargers that are 8 kilowatts and above, contentious one to talk about a bit further. And I can't remember number 6.
I just cannot believe you can't remember number 6. This is absolutely brilliant, because number 6 is that each charge point operator must have a roaming partner as
That's
part
it.
of their. Which
knew it was there somewhere. Just at the tip of my tongue, it just slipped in.
Yeah. Brilliant.
I think you just wanted Sam to say it.
Yeah.
I'm gonna dine out on that one for so long.
Roaming partners.
Well done, Neil. That was amazing.
Yeah, really impressive.
Natalia, how have you viewed the new regulations coming? An exciting time for you? Because presumably if charging is much easier, more people will say, yeah, I'll take an electric vehicle, because as Chris has said, it's all about connecting to electricity.
Absolutely. I mean, we shouldn't have to explain it. People should just be able to charge, and it should be intuitive and easy. We shouldn't have to have a conversation with people about, well, if you download this app or you use this card or you go to this network or to this region, that's what we need to get away from. Now and actually moving countries, I've just moved to Spain, has shown me how much the UK's progressed, I have to say. I mean, I'm living in Mallorca as well, so it's a little bit of a microcosm, so I'm not sure it represents the rest of Spain, but all of this regulation that we just put in place in the UK, it should just be the norm everywhere. And actually we could have done it sooner. There are countries that do it way better than us already, but it's definitely the step in the right direction.
Paul?
So I think we're in danger of missing part of the market here. Of course, I'm going to say just the vans have just
vans?
Yeah. So they've just overtaken 50,000 vehicles on the road. But what we recognize with the van market, and what we've been talking about to the Iveco customers today, is really thinking about where you charge, because owning that charging infrastructure and being in control of it, we always focus on public charging, but actually it's trying to make the commercial decisions that allow us to control all of that that charging process, so that we aren't charging in the public network with commercial vehicles in particular, because it's danger on productivity, because there might be queues, and to Niall's point that we could have more, but also from an physical access point of view, typically the charge point areas are not designed for commercial vehicles. So there is something else that needs to happen for commercial vehicles if we're to continue this development. If we just settle for, well, we'll just have cars as zero emission, then fine, crack on as you are. But we do need a different solution, because we know trucks are going electric and we know vans are going electric at some pace. And with more and more questions answered, particularly by the Iveco e-Daily that's getting launched right now, it's a fantastic piece of kit and answering a lot more questions in the marketplace, and as are many electric vans.
Can I just jump in, Neil, just before you do, can I just jump in with some of our contributors' comments? Sebastian Fleischacker from Spiri, who provide a back office and connect chargers, has suggested that you can get base charging from Vital. What a good idea.
Vital EV Solutions, to give them their full yes.
Indeed, sir. Indeed. Now, Neil, you were going to say.
I just want to pick up on Paul's point that when the original consultation came out around consumer experience at charge points, it was very much focused on B2C drivers. What was really cool to see was, as they got the feedback, government adapted that to reflect the fact there are business drivers out there as well. So there is some recognition of the changes that need to take place to move towards the business environment as much as the consumer environment. But when it comes to big vehicles, they're just bigger, and it takes a lot more effort to get them into those small spaces, as I learned driving a Mercedes, and I'm not particularly good parker on the best of days. So bigger spaces for bigger vehicles probably needed. And
that wasn't even a big van, let's be honest.
It was a small one.
It's only a little van. Oh, it's a medium van officially, but yeah. I mean, you should have been able to park that. No, Neil.
Neville. Sarah.
God, what is wrong with everybody not getting your name?
It's deliberate. It's comedy effect.
Okay, right.
Sarah.
Sarah, do get along, Sarah.
Sarah Snowman. I think
Frosty.
Frosty. I think for me, the thing that I was excited about with the legislation that didn't really happen was that legacy charging piece. So that swathe of 7.4s that went in 3 or 4 years ago, predominantly by local authorities, with a view to allowing people to charge there overnight, is now in a position where they're still closed, they're still shonky, they still have not as much uptime as we'd all like, and their repair cycles are not as you'd like them to be as a local charge point. But on the plus side, most of these things are due for replacement very naturally, and they will have to comply. So at first I was a bit sad that it went up to 8 kilowatts because it let a lot of the 7s get away with it. But actually I think consumer will vote with their feet. They'll go elsewhere. You will not get that revenue from that machine. So therefore it may end up being decommissioned and make way for somebody else with better efficiency.
Sam.
John, can I answer a question from Scott Bradley on the chat, actually, because it's a good question. And that was, he said, can LCV operators, that's light commercial vehicles, not bunker electricity? And there's a sort of couple of answers to that. One is, well, yes, you can. And there's a couple of ways, sorry, in which you could do that. One is obviously battery storage. So if you've got a limited grid, then battery storage might be a mechanism by which you can actually bunker energy locally and then distribute it when you need it. And the second thing, which is also more easier done, and I actually did this myself when I ran my own logistics company, is hedge your electricity. So if you know you're going to have that consumption, then there's the ability to actually buy it in advance and set the price. So it's not bunkering quite in the literal sense, but it is mean that I bought megawatts hours of energy up front, knowing that I was going to need it, and therefore get a discount as a result. So there's probably other ways of doing it, but there's a couple of ways in which you can effectively bunker. Yes, Paul.
Well, right on the back of what you've been talking about, what we're seeing also is the solar with batteries coming into vogue much more so. There are companies out there that will put solar on your roof space and do that free of charge, and then sell you back the energy and then export the energy, the surplus energy, and sell it. Equally, there is the car park, the solar car park from 3TI, and they can put in solar car parks, capture that energy, put it into batteries so you can distribute it when you need it, but also they can send it back to the grid, they can give it to your business, and they report that they will save £1,000 a car parking space. So the innovation is catching up very fast with our demand, and people are going to be coming up with innovative solutions to make money on the back of these challenges.
I think it's worth recognizing the part that we've probably all played in helping to move this whole area forward. And whilst we've not been directly involved with the legislation, the pressure that we've been able to bring to bear in the marketplace through Chris's long evangelism about electric vehicles. Sam, 20 years ago, you were setting up Newton and pushing back the boundaries. Neil, with the work that you do with making charging easier for people and making access to vehicles easier, Natalia, Paul banging on about his vans, we all should just take a moment to think, wow, we've come a long way in not very long, but we've got a hell of a long way to go still.
Yeah.
Lots to do.
Yeah, I'm just touching on very quickly. I don't want to run over time for you guys, but I was going to touch on the fact of what Natalia was saying as well, is making it simpler for the customer. If this legislation can make it simpler for the customer to just turn up and plug in and just essentially walk away for that period of time and don't overstay, I will say that, then that's what we need. I mean, here in the US and Canada, it's been a minefield a lot of times. Customer contact centers, having a 24/7 customer contact center as part of this legislation, fantastic. But as long as that contact center can access and remotely access chargers, because here in the US a lot of them can't, it's having a contact center that's going to do viable things and responsible things for the customer, to not leave them stranded. At the end of the day, we need to make it simple and make it easy for everybody.
I think there's a fire. I think there's a fire in my hotel. Right. This could get interesting. Listen, I just
hand me the host, and I'll
finish. Right. It's right. It's stopped now.
Okay.
That was a moment, Sam.
Yeah, I just wanted to a quick summary, really, in a way, John, and just to echo. Someone needs to go on mute. just to echo what you said, John, about the experience that we have in this room and elsewhere is fantastic. And it's and one thing I just wanted to reiterate as we've busted a few myths today is that there's a load of technology out there that we know already exists, is already in the marketplace and is usable. So let's use it. So let's not worry too much about that. Hybrid is an old industry and hydrogen is miles away. We didn't touch on that. What's the latter one? Thank Christ. But reality is we've got loads of technology we can use. The vehicles work, the infrastructure works, the solar is there, the wind is there, the storage is there. It's all there. So we've all got to try and use it. And then we actually might be able to make a difference and stem the increase in temperatures. So I guess my last point was just let's crack on. Let's crack on with the technology we've got today and use it. And then we might just be all right.
Abelo?
For me, you know, I'm talking to lots of commercial vehicle fleets this week, which has been incredible. And when we see the backdrop, the ZEV mandate and the drive to that, we've got to just keep going and keep pushing and keep banging on, as you say. I don't mind banging on. I'm happy to bang on. But I also wanted to say what a brilliant halo we have with Chris and what he's doing in terms of that journey from the North Pole to the South Pole. It's really going to make an impact and get people thinking. So I just wanted to say, Chris, happy, safe onward journey. Really well done. You got the tough bit to come, we know, getting through South America and onto the Antarctic. All the best, and just look out for penguins. Apparently they're really dangerous.
No, thank you very much. And I'll just leave on that and just say, like, at the end of the day, as Sam said, the technology is not the issue. The technology is not the problem. It's basically this. It's our mindset. It's our mindset and human nature to turn around and just try and fight change and resist change. Just get on. Let's just get on with it, as Sam says. It's as simple as that. Let's just get on with it. The technology is there. Let's just get on with doing things, and let's protect this planet.
Well, and let's do what Evie Cafe does best, which is listen to our audience, bust those myths for you, so that it's all on you as well. It's on everybody who's watched or listened or tuned in today or who interacts with us on social platforms. You now need to take this message forward and continue to bust those myths with fact. And if you'd like to just send them our way, we'll do it for you. That's why we do what we do. Thank you, John, especially to you for hosting and sharing. Glad that you didn't park your Evie on the top floor of that hotel.
Thank you, everybody who's joined today. Thank you, the audience. Natalia, superb. Thank you for joining us from Spain. Neil Nile, thank you so much for all you do. You powered the EV rally for us. You power what we do, and you power a little bit of grid serve as well. So bless you for that. And Chris, stay safe, my friend. Do the thing that you do best and show the world it can be done. We'd like to thank also our sponsors, the AA, Plug Me In, Churchill, Geotab, and EV Civils. You said before, we couldn't do it without you. Much love to everybody. Thanks for putting up with our madness, and we'll see you next month. But don't forget, 10 o'clock Friday, it's the news. Until then, bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, there's no outro music like on the news. That's sad, isn't it?
Yeah. Do you know?